Hey guys, so when you bring your new dog home, a lot of times what happens is we humans want to give the dog everything. And I'm that kind of person too. I've had lots of rescue dogs over the years and I've helped out with rescue and all that kind of stuff. And heck, if I'm head over heels in love with this new dog, I want to give him everything for free. But that is not always the smartest thing to do. I'll tell you the reason why. Some dogs will take advantage of that in that they'll think that they can just do whatever they want, or they will get kind of lazy and complacent and not really care about what you ask them to do because they just have everything that they want in life for free, as the old adage goes. Okay. If you give your dog ultimate freedom before you even know them, you could potentially be putting yourself or your family members in a potentially compromising situation. Okay. So what you want to do is slowly give them access to your house, slowly give them access to your body, being next to you, the things that we hold most dear. I don't know any human in the world that would allow another human that they've never met before to come into their house, let them sleep in their bed the first night that they're in their home, give them whatever they want, and have essentially no rules. But that seems to be the case with the majority of rescue dogs that find new homes. And I'm not saying that's the worst thing in the world. And some dogs can actually deal with that quite well. The problem is that you won't necessarily know if your dog is the kind of dog that can deal with that potentially until it's too late. Now, one of the things that we hear about all the time as trainers, not all the time, but relatively consistently, is things like, hey, I let the dog start sleeping in the bed with me, and it's been a little while now, and he's growling at me, or he bit my husband, or whatever the case is, right? Or, hey, we got this new dog, we have another dog, and they're just not getting along because, I don't know why, right? Or, hey, we've got this new dog, we've had him for a month now. When I ask him to come, he won't come. He just takes off and he goes running off for an hour or whatever the case is. These are all things that are symptomatic of a dog owner who's very loving, compassionate, a wonderful person, but at the same time may have given their dog too much too soon without expecting enough. So the way that you want to look at it is when you have a new dog come into your house, they need to prove themselves to you. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. There's lots of things I want to give to my dog, but allowing a dog to sleep in my bed with me that I don't know where they came from, don't know their backstory, and I have no idea, especially on the first night, if that dog is going to try to bite me and has some issues that haven't been detected yet. You have to build a relationship, just like a human relationship is built over time. You got to build that trust. And every day you'll know your dog a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. Have your dogs start to work for food. This is very simple, but don't give them everything for free. Hey man, if you want food, you got to do something for it. If I'm going to take you to the park and I want to start giving you some freedom, put a rope on the dog. We call that a long line, right? Put a rope on the dog. Let them run around with the long line on. Hold on to it in the beginning. If they're doing really good, drop the long line. Let them drag it so that if they take off a little too far, you can step on it, right? And use your dog's food to get them to behave the way that you want them to behave. If I could give any dog owner one piece of advice, it would be this. Do not give your dog their food for doing absolutely nothing. It is probably the worst thing that any dog owner could do. in that most dogs become complacent and unreliable because everything in their life is provided for them. Now, I understand why most dog owners would feel like, well, what do you mean? Like, I just put the food down and he eats it twice a day, and or maybe we just leave a bowl full of food on the ground or whatever. Especially if the dog is a rescue dog and we don't know what's happened to him in the past, and maybe he was a little bit abused or neglected. And I'm not saying don't feed your dog. What I am saying is that you can get them to do something for it, right? With human beings, there's lots of different ways to motivate a human being. There's only a few ways to motivate a dog: food, toys, praise, treats. Those are kind of like the 4 pillars, okay? Now, of those 4, there's 2 that are essential: food and water, okay? I always just suggest water is always free. It can be down, whatever. But food needs to be worked for. Praise and toys and treats, those are, let's say, icing on the cake things, right? So the dog doesn't have to have those things, but the dog has to have food. So if you only feed your dog when you go to the park and you put a little sandwich baggie full of food in your pocket, and you're feeding them when you ask them to come, you're blowing a whistle, they come to you and they get food. You give them a little handful of food. They go out again, you blow the whistle, and every time you want them to call back, you feed them. Now, what's key here is if you blow the whistle and the dog doesn't come, especially if they're consistently ignoring you, put the food away, boom, your food's gone, you missed that meal, okay? You can continue your walk, whatever you want to do, but the dog needs to figure out that there's not going to be food for free at home. So this is what we call no free lunch policy. And if you're starting to feel bad about this situation already, remind yourself that at no point are you depriving this dog of anything. Put it to you this way. If I ask you to do something simple for me, let's say I ask you to, drive to my house and bring me a slice of pizza, okay? And I say, I'm gonna give you $1,000 if you go get a slice of pizza, bring it to me, and deliver it to me in the next hour. And you say, Ted, I don't wanna do that. I'm busy watching something on Netflix and I'm cozy right now and I don't wanna do it. Okay, now, let me ask you a question. Did I deprive you of $1,000? Or did you deprive yourself of $1,000? Think about that for a second, guys. If you offer your dog food and he goes, no, I just want to piss on this bush, you didn't deprive them of anything. You offered them food. The dog said no. But it's a hard thing for us to wrap our head around as dog owners because we're so, let's say, programmed to here's your food twice a day, regardless of your behavior. I've trained, I would say, 300 dogs that have seriously hurt their owners, okay? Like put them in the hospital kind of situations. And you know what's kind of fascinating to me when I think back about it is, at no point did anybody ever question that simple thing. A dog can attack the owner, right? The person goes to the hospital and somebody comes in to feed the dog. It's like, you put your owner in the hospital, there's your food. You don't have to do anything for it, okay? We've got the dog training world completely upside down. If you go to third world countries, typically the dogs are so much better controlled than they are in Canada. And I'll tell you the biggest reason why. Because they're expected to do things, right? It's like, hey, I'm going to walk down the street and go to the corner store and buy a bag of chips. You want to get your food? You come with me for it. It's simple little things like that. But we don't think about those things in our society. Like I said, if I could give you any advice, it would be this. And if you take your dog out and the dog is not interested, put the food away. Okay, you just missed that meal. Don't feed them double on the next meal. You just missed those calories. You take your dog home, your dog will be like, whoa, where's the meal, man? Hey, you just had an option to it and you said no to it. Okay, cool. And then the next time you take him out, he's going to be more interested in the food. If your dog is consistently saying no to food, either there's a serious health concern, which is probably unlikely. If you got your dog through a rescue, they probably would have had a vet check. Or you're feeding the dog too much food, okay? The amount of times I have clients come in and they say, my dog won't even eat treats. The first thing I ask them is, how much are you feeding your dog? We had a client we started with, a lab a couple of weeks ago. They were feeding the dog 6 cups of food a day. 6 cups of food. Now, it was a lab and it was still eating, but like most dogs will get to like 2.5, 3 cups of food and they just stop eating because they don't need that much caloric intake in the day. So you can use the back of the bag to be a guide, but at the end of the day, that may not be exactly what your dog needs. For example, one of my dogs, he's about 75 pounds. And if I feed him more than 3 cups of food a day, he stops eating. He would just not eat anymore because that's all that he needs. He's cool with that. So I feed him 2 3/4, right? Keeps him a little bit peckish. He's always excited to work for food and he doesn't stop eating because I'm feeding him the right amount. But on the back of the bag, it says to feed how much food. Well, it says I'm supposed to be feeding him like 4.5 cups or something ridiculous, okay? So sometimes you got to look at your dog as an individual and go, oh, okay, well, the bag says that much, but when I feed him that much, he just stops eating, right? Put it to you this way. If I ask you to come over to my house for a barbecue, right? And I think, okay, well, maybe I'll make this person, I don't know, 4 hamburgers. And I give them to you and you only eat 2 of them. Now, I probably gave you more. Now, if you came over the next weekend and I offered you 4 hamburgers and you ate 2, okay, there's a trend here. And the next weekend, 4 hamburgers and you only eat 2. At some point, I got to look at you and go, okay, well, I think you're the kind of person that should be eating 4 hamburgers, but clearly you're a 2 hamburger kind of person, okay? Just because it says to feed that on the back of the bag, it doesn't mean that that's the right thing to do, okay? Of course, dog food manufacturers are going to be incentivized to try to get you to feed your dog more food. It sells more dog food. It's like going to McDonald's and saying, you think I should get the extra fries or the upsize that? Of course they're going to say yes. Upsize for everyone. Okay? So these are some really simple little things, guys. The amount that you feed your dog, how you feed your dog, that can prevent you from ever having to meet me. I was going to laugh. I was like, listen, guys, take my advice. You won't have to call me. Now, I'm here for you guys if you need me, but I'd rather you just not need me. I'd rather you just do this and not have to call me because you don't have a problem. If you only feed your dog when you go for walks at the park, your dog's going to come. Because if he figures out that if he doesn't want to take the food from time to time and the food goes away and his tummy's growling all day when you're gone to work, the next time you take him out, he's going to be more motivated. So let's recap a little bit here. Don't let your dog in the bed right away until you know your dog. Don't let him on the couch. Lots of dogs bite people when they sit down next to them on the couch. I hope that's not your dog, but you want to give your dog a little bit of time to find out, right? Exercise your dog consistently. That's all, that's pretty basic stuff. The amount that you feed your dog is very, very critical. And I'm not going to go into like what type of food to be feeding, but traditionally for most dogs, I suggest staying away from like rocket fuel dog food, which is like super high protein dog foods, because that'll give your dog tons of extra energy, and that energy can come out as bad behavior too. So if you have a dog who goes for 2 20-minute walks a day, you don't need to be feeding them these like 150 bag $150 bag of dog food kind of scenarios, because that's probably going to be very nutrient dense and protein dense, and that's going to give your dog a lot of extra energy, unless you have to feed something like that because the dog has food sensitivities or something like that. Diversification in food is really key too. So I would suggest, listen, put human food in your dog's food. Now, some of you guys might want to feed raw, whatever. I'm a big raw guy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to tell you guys what to do, but diversity is key. Okay. Normal bag of dog food is not a complete diet, if you ask me. There's not a lot of variance in that food. Okay. So start by throwing a little bit of human food in. Some traditional ones, they're really healthy for dogs. Crack an egg. You can throw the shell in if you want. Some people are like a little bit ooey about that, but crack an egg in there, just a raw egg, and let them eat it. Dogs love it. It's so good. It's so healthy for them. You don't have to cook it. Their bodies can figure that stuff out, right? You got a little bit of extra hamburger after when you're cooking your meal for your family or something like that. Throw some of that in there. You could do it raw. Okay, it's healthy for them. If you want to cook it, fine, you can do that. But their bodies can deal with this stuff, guys. They have the same GI tract as a wolf. They're not wolves, but they have the same GI tract, and they can deal with it. I fed my dogs raw for many, many years until they got older and started having some complications. But just having said that, guys, diversity. You want to introduce one thing at a time now, because if you introduce a bunch of things at the same time and your dog's, belly gets upset or they get diarrhea or something like that, you won't know which ingredient did that. Okay, so take it slow, one ingredient at a time. Fruits and veggies, and if you're going to do veggies, maybe steam those vegetables. But most dogs love bananas. Cut up apples for them. Obviously, no seeds in there, stuff like that. Really, really good to have some variety in their diet. My dogs get all kinds of weird and wacky stuff. They get maybe a little bit of dog food, and then get an egg in there. I'll throw half a can of sardines in there. I'll throw in a little bit of yogurt sometimes. We'll have some rice pasta, with our for our dinner. Have a little extra. Throw some of that in there. They can eat all kinds of this stuff. It's very, very healthy for them to have diversity in their diet. Okay. So, guys, I can't express how important it is. Give your dogs proper nutrition. Okay? Socialization. Don't expect your dog is going to be perfect with every dog or every kid or every person. Work up to those things. If you're skeptical, if you don't know, let them socialize through a fence. Okay? If you got a friend who's got a dog, let them socialize through the fence. See how they do. And then, let them run around a little bit, and then take the leash off and go from there. You don't know your dog at this point. Nobody knows your dog at this point. And you want to take your time to be able to get there. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't do this. And then they call me and say, oh my God, I was at the park and my dog attacked a dog. And, now I'm, the animal services is threatening to take my dog away and all this kind of stuff. That can be prevented, guys. If your dog has a problem, you can either avoid that by not giving them access to other dogs, or you can come in for training, but there's no reason why your dog has to, seriously mangle another dog in order for you to figure it out, right? So take your time in socializing your dog with people, with kids, with other dogs. Again, build trust with them. And you'll see the areas where they're really highly developed and doing good, and areas where they kind of fall flat on their face, right? Leash walking is one of the biggest issues that people have with their dogs. And a lot of people like to use harnesses these days. I'm not pro or against harnesses, but I find that most dogs pull really badly when they're on harnesses. There's lots of different tools that you guys can use out there, right? So you can use a gentle leader, which is called it's just another word for a head collar. It's one of those ones that goes around the snout. You can't use this for dogs with really short snouts because they could just easily pull it off, like a boxer or a French bulldog. But if you got a dog that's some sort of like a, I don't know, like, pitty mix or something like that, really good for that. Or maybe a shepherd mix, husky mix, etc. Right? can really help with the leash pulling. It's you know, it's a tool of choice. There's lots of different tools out there. I'm not going to try to steer you towards them, but some dogs really don't like them, and it's not a good fit because, you know, they just don't like having things around their nose. So that's one tool. Harnesses can be good, but traditionally, if you're going to try a harness, I would suggest a front clip harness. So one that clips on here, and if the dog pulls, it just kind of twists them a little bit. Not a huge fan, but I know a lot of people, you know, really rave about those harnesses. The back clip ones that clip on the back here, not a huge fan of those ones. You probably want to stay away from those because if you look at a dog that's doing, like, you know, pulling a dog sled, what are they wearing? Well, they're wearing that, right? They're wearing exactly that, okay? A harness that clips in the back. They're designed to make it easier for the dog to pull, right? Not a big fan of choke chains just because they're very, let's say, if the dog pulls a lot, it can cause damage to their trachea and their larynx, which is just right here. So I don't suggest that unless you have really, really, really good technique. And most dog trainers don't even have a good enough technique to be able to do that. So probably try to stay away from that. But the head collar can be a really good one. There's some other tools out there that are, let's say, a little bit more, I don't know, taboo, I would say. Like prong collars. Prong collars can be very effective for stopping dogs from pulling on the leash. We definitely use them from time to time in our training. You know, we get dogs that, like, they're horrible on the leash, like pulling the owners over and they're like falling down on the ground kind of situations where people have left things way too long. You can use an e-collar, which just gives a pulse, a little correction of the dog's neck. That's can also be helpful for off-leash training and stuff like that. If you need help with these things, obviously you can reach out to us, but don't be afraid to get creative. Try this, try that, see what works best for you guys. I'm not here to tell you guys what you should do. You know, you might have a, you know, great success, just a normal collar, right? Some dogs walk great on a normal collar. Some dogs need the head collar. Some dogs need a little bit more than that, right? But try to get good leash walking down so that the better your dog walks, the more that you're going to want to do with them, the more places you're going to want to take them, and the easier they're going to be to enjoy, okay? If your dog does not like socializing with other dogs on leash, which is very common, right? Don't make them do it. Some dogs get super stressed out because they can't run away. So just keep that in mind. Some dogs are they're better with other dogs off leash. Some dogs don't want to say hi to other dogs on a leash, okay? So some simple things here, guys. I hope that you take this advice to heart. It's literally come from me working with over 1,000 rescue dogs. And so I hope that it makes a difference in your life.